Coming in at number 5, we've got the endangered golden snub-nosed Sasquatch. It already feels like it's been at least a few weeks since that goofy little monkey went viral. To be honest, I've lost all concept of linear time during the pandemic, so anything that happened during the past year might as well have happened yesterday or 6 months ago. No in between. Thankfully, Twitter tends to timestamp stuff, so we all know when this enormous brooding beast in the style of the funny internet monkey made its first appearance. April 18th, 2021. The Day of Reckoning. If you were one of the many folks enamored by the tiny friend asking for berries and other assorted snacks, you might want to look away. This older, angrier cousin is not looking to be your pal, and it's no longer affable and adorable, and it's not simply going to ask for snacks. I can only imagine this huge, lumbering humanoid waiting outside of a tent in the middle of the night, arm outstretched as if to request that you hand something over. But what does it want? It's not berries, it's not snacks, so what? Well, probably something like your soul, or maybe a pint of blood. And it'll be damned if you don't fork it over right away. For all of these Sasquatch and Bigfoot and skunk ape hunting people tend to do, you've got to wonder if they really want to encounter the cryptid they've been tailing. Like, let's leave these majestic and horrifying creatures alone, yeah? Otherwise they might beat us to death. God, just look at the thing. The perspective alone tells how gigantic it is. With the light hitting it like below the knee, it's a sight nobody wants while hiking through the bush in the dark. Just picture looking through the window of a cabin and seeing this thing lurking among the trees. That's an image nobody is scrubbing from their brains anytime soon. Good lord. Let's hope the next few monkey encounters are just as pleasant as the original viral post, because if they start looking more like this, we're all in trouble. Give it a few more years and the Sasquatches will be out in droves. Coming in at number 4, bird. Well, it can't be that bad, right? It's just a bird. We've lived alongside these winged creatures for years, and the worst that seems to happen is that someone will get dive-bombed every once in a while. Maybe an ostrich will get extra aggressive, or some chickens will relentlessly peck at someone's ankles. But those birds, they've got nothing on this. Introduced with the flavor text, farms left abandoned, their fields overgrown, something moving through the fields nearby. Birds congregate on the land in worship. This prompts a whole lot of imagination now, doesn't it? Why did the farmers abandon their fields? What evil presence inspired that major life change? What's moving out there? The birds or other scarier creatures? Now, if you look right at this thing, you'll find that there isn't much likely to be scarier. Just hanging out by a decrepit tunnel covered in lichen and other dangly haunted house decorations, looking back over its shoulder at whoever's interrupted its strange rituals in the dark. Ugh, it kind of looks like a huge bird/human fetus with those awful red eyes. And the multiple deformed little wings on its back really sell that idea. So how did this thing come to be? Is it an experiment between bird and man gone wrong? A demon summoned from the nether realms? Regardless of how it got here, I'd really rather it just went away. At least you can almost guarantee that you'll avoid it by staying out of an abandoned farmer's field, right? But some folks just can't seem to consistently do so. Hopefully they're content with just going about their rituals, ignoring any new presence as best they can. Coming in at number 3, 3 red strings. Now, these apparitions have shown up a few times over the years, but the latest iteration could be the scariest. Mannequin-like figures that seem to float in the air, these are the perfect uncanny valley companions. They've been seen all over, from floating in the sky to hovering just below the ceiling in grubby basements. Although they tend to be in different places quite often, they're always a bad omen. Pallid and dilapidated, these humanoids never have anything resembling heads. Instead, they're supported in the air by 3 red strings. These supports allow them to sort of float wherever they are, resulting in a very foreboding atmosphere. They've been spotted way above cityscapes, startling folks on the ground, and more recently were discovered by a team of first responders in a suburban home. The story gets a little muddy though, as it's reported that a few hours later they had disappeared. But who disappeared? The mannequins or the first responders? Maybe both, right? All I know is that I would not want to find myself facing down these horrid beings late at night. Although I am curious about where those red strings lead. Not so sure I'm willing to go ahead and find out though. Coming in at number 2, we've got Mr. Bag. Oh no. There's something extra upsetting about a creature that seems to consist of large black plastic bags. Some claim that this atrocity smells like hot garbage, which is probably a pretty accurate description. First appearing back in December, Mr. Bag has paid a few visits to the good people of the internet. The first image of this creature depicts it casting a shadow against a wall with some crude drawings on it. Lore is always appreciated, and it seems as though Mr. Bag either likes to draw himself and his targets, or he lets himself be known to a younger individual who then becomes obsessed and starts scribbling that shit everywhere. Apparently this thing has been around for decades too. Trevor followed up his original image with one of Mr. Bag depicted in a Polaroid marked June 13, 1993. Hopefully the poor sap who snapped the picture is okay, but I somehow doubt it. Mr. Bag looks like he's at least 15 feet tall, probably more, but it's tough to tell. And according to Trevor himself, he's not nice. Not even a little bit. The pale face and empty eyes poking out of a mass of black plastic is an image that will probably stick with a lot of people. Plus, whatever new details we learn of will probably be extra grisly. And coming in at number 1, we've got The Long Lady. Remember Host, the pandemic-themed Zoom call horror movie that released to almost universal acclaim late last year? It took a lot of ingenious planning to make that work, but it was definitely worth it in the end. Experimental, relatable, and definitely scary, it did something a whole lot of people have tried to do for years. Make a webcam horror movie that is good from start to finish. When somebody makes something like that, you know there's going to be a lot of people looking to work with them in the future. And guess what happened? Jed Shepard, the writer/executive producer of Host, is working on a new project called Ghosts, and he got Trevor Henderson to design the monster, and Jim Henson's Creature Workshop is fabricating it. All that together sounds like a dream come true. We haven't seen too much of this creature, the Long Lady, yet, but if you head over to the project's Kickstarter, there are a few teaser images. Black and white photos of a London neighborhood have something hidden within, and those with a sharp eye might be able to catch a glimpse of this legendary creature. Ghosts is going to be a real-time live-action horror video game about a team of ghost hunters trying to keep their viewership alive. In order to keep their audience engaged, they decide to investigate an infamous suburb filled with oddball residents and, of course, ghastly paranormal rumors. Players run the show from behind the scenes, making choices about the broadcast that will impact how interested viewers are and the fates of the on-screen ghost hunters. Taking inspiration from games like Night Trap and Phantasmagoria, it'll be a fascinating ride for sure, especially with the team behind it. Plus, the game just about demands that you play it live, meaning that you have to log in right at 10 p.m. to play, and from there, all bets are off. No pausing, no leaving, no nothing. Immersion, am I right? So if you're a fan of Trevor Henderson and want to see one of his creations truly come to life, then this is the game for you. Keep an eye out for new images of the Long Lady, too. Coming in at number 5, we've got Bachelor number 1. For all of you lonely hearts out there, fret not. There is a lovely bachelor just for you. As long as you don't have trypophobia, he could be your dream guy. Just look at this moral mushroom-looking dude and imagine your life together. As a sharp dresser and quite photogenic, this potential hunk of love is a treasure trove of wonderful traits. For example, he loves to cook. Big on Italian food, he often does his best to learn new recipes and cooks from home quite often. So you foodies out there, he could be quite the catch. That insane dome goes well with the type of food too. You could easily mistake that head top for a big mass of spaghetti or maybe a terrifying incarnation of Pizza the Hut. His hobbies include reading, watching movies, and of course, smelling the black moss that grows in the corner of his basement. Who doesn't love a good sniff of the subterranean gunk from time to time? Hell, he'll probably share if you come and visit. This next fact might come off as a little odd, but he also loves bird watching. In his profile, he lists amateur ornithologist. So for those looking to try something new, this could be it. Plus, and some folks are gonna love this, his head just won't stop growing. All that pulsating flesh up there keeps increasing in size. He's got 4 visible mouths now, but that could very well go up at a moment's notice. There's always more to love. Plus, once you meet him, he'll never leave your dreams. This is the kind of dude that comes along once in a lifetime. Now, you could go with Bachelor 1 right now and live happily ever after. Or maybe wait and see what the next lucky contestant has to offer. Is it better to stick with what you know, even if it's an eldritch monstrosity? Or will you delve into the unknown and accept all of the terror that comes with it? Find out next time on Weird, Horrifying Bachelors from the Mind of a Madman. What kind of cuisine will the next guy prefer? Coming in at number 4, we've got The Thing. While the inspiration for this creature seems to be the John Carpenter classic, The Thing, it is still a brand spanking new interpretation of the alien life form. Accompanied by the caption, "Man is the warmest place to hide," it's a callback to a famous quote from that legendary poster. You know the one, the parka with all sorts of light coming out from where her face should be. I usually have it behind me, but not today. So while looking at this eerily similar interpretation, one can see the similarities. However, the attention to detail here is incredible and adds a whole new layer of creepiness. The blue tones and winter jacket are still there, but it's a totally different vibe. First of all, the stuff coming out of the hood isn't just blocks of light anymore. Nope, it's some sort of fleshy tendril, which to anyone who has seen the movie will probably cause some vivid flashbacks. Memories of all sorts of different Thing iterations come to mind for sure. Then look a little closer at the parka itself and you might notice some additional spooky stuff. The hood takes on some extra monstrous qualities, seemingly a little polar bear-esque or maybe even Yeti-ish. The fact that it's even a jacket with the hood up is hard to guarantee once you start looking at the whole picture too. The form of the entity becomes more muddied near the bottom of the frame. Is this because of the heavy snow making visibility go down, or is it because the actual shape of the creature is less man, more beast? It's an expert reimagining of an iconic image that works on so many levels. And even though it would be super cool to see what was hidden behind the hood, I'm not so sure I'd want to find out what horrors await in the darkness. Sometimes not knowing is better in the end. Although if I was a member of an Antarctic research team and noticed some odd behaviors and even odder creatures, I might have to buck up and find out. For the safety of everyone, you know? Coming in at number 3, we've got Mr. Mask. Sometimes you've just gotta show your support. It's a trend seen in all sorts of different horror communities, but is especially amusing when applied to some of Trevor Henderson's creations. Instead of reacting with shock and disgust to a creepy crawly creature that stalks the night, why not do your best to boost it up? At first, you might see a creature like this wearing an uncanny valley humanish mask and think, oh my god, I gotta get out of here. But then, you see the caption. He made his own mask this time. Oh, this monster likes to craft. He made a mask for himself and wants to show it off. Even if it is an unsettling facsimile of the human form, at least he's trying. Gray skin, cracked surfaces, overly detailed teeth, and a pair of dead, painted on eyes, but hey, he made it himself. Give a little credit where credit's due, right? So while seeing this image out of context might induce a full body case of the shivers, the replies to this picture on Twitter are all folks saying how proud they are of the hard work Mr. Mask put into creating his face covering. You gotta wonder what's under the mask though. That pitch black silhouette, barely visible in the darkness, supports a different face than the one we're seeing in the moment. What inspires this thing to cover its face? Is it too scary for human consumption? How could it possibly be worse than the face it made for itself? Have we seen this creature before, but wearing a different visage? Coming in at number 2, we've got Bad Dream. Nightmares have plagued folks since the dawn of humanity. There's no escaping our subconscious fears, especially when we're dreaming. However, most folks tend to dream about missing the bus before a big job interview or showing up to an exam wearing nothing but their underoos. These stem from real-life, everyday fears. Failure, public embarrassment, performance anxiety, and more. So what does it mean when you see something like this in a dream? Did you see it somewhere in real life first? I don't know what's worse, conjuring up something like this as shorthand for whatever problems plague you, or actually encountering it in some capacity before having it visit your dreams. This is one of Trevor's pieces that involves both digital photography and digital painting. He's inserted this creature into an actual photo, making it feel extra real, or extra surreal. The empty room on its own would be unsettling, giving off some back rooms vibes. Imagine being in a place like that, even without a monster in the door. You'd definitely think twice before exploring, right? Scroll a little further in the thread and you can find a much more detailed rendering of this figure too. Is that a human skull or some sort of alien form? It's definitely wearing some sort of button-up coat, so we know it likes to keep warm. And finally at number 1, the Placer County Anomaly. More of the world is photographed today than ever before. There are countless camera-laden vehicles, drones, and satellites capturing images of every square inch of the Earth. Google Earth has managed to map pretty much every inhabitable area of the world. Folks can hop online and see whatever street they want, right at ground level in 3D, 360 degrees. But some of it is off limits. Faces are blurred, license plates are censored, and unspeakable horrors are redacted. According to the caption on this one, 8 people were found dead near the Homewood ski area in Placer County, California. Folks scoured security footage, but most of it was unusable or unintelligible. However, for a moment, an anomaly was spotted. Resembling a cacodemon from Doom or a gigantic sky meatball with a multi-tiered tooth-filled mouth, this thing floated above the censored area for a few moments and then disappeared. Upon further rewatches of the footage, the creature did not reappear. Looking at the original image posted by the California Landscapes bot, a lot of the mysterious intrigue is still there. For some reason, half the image is totally blacked out, with an additional rectangle of landscape removed without content. Adding this floating ball of flesh and hatred makes the whole thing much creepier, but let's be real, meatball or not, you want to know what's behind all that blank space. Coming in number 5, owl with human mouth and hands. This idea's been on the back burner for a while, eh? In early 2019, Trevor tweeted out a text-only idea for a creature. Quote, "I stop and speak into a small portable recording device. Owl with human mouth and hands." End quote. Obviously, this funky idea stuck with him because here we are in 2021. reaping the rewards of said fascinating image. Before we get into the details of this creature, just imagine for a moment, if you will, walking outdoors and having a perfectly average day. Then a man stops up next to you, raises a portable recorder before his face, and speaks those words. Personally, I'd be worried I'd run into the thing for the next few weeks. Sounds like the work of a mad scientist with a penchant for fusing people parts to predatory animals. Somewhere in his basement there's a wolf with human teeth and maybe a fox with some decidedly less furry ears. Yikes. But you know what? I'd watch that movie. Back to the creature at hand though, or should I say, hands. This hideous abomination is everything that I want to avoid at all costs. Owls are classic spooky creatures to begin with, often associated with paranormal creatures of the night, Halloween, and general creepy ambiance. So adding in some very upsetting alterations only makes them that much scarier. What does it need those huge mitts for anyways? They're good at hunting their prey as is. One has to assume those extra digits are for hunting a new kind of prey. Larger, harder to handle, better at struggling free of its grasp. Do you think this thing hunts humans? Maybe that's it. The more people it kills, the more human it becomes. I'm not claiming that that's what actually happens, but if you ever see somebody with particularly owl-like eyes, maybe walk the other way. Running full tilt is probably a good call too. Lastly, I want to discuss the final human detail here. This owl does not have a beak, it has a gaping maw full of bloody human teeth. Honestly, I can deal with it as long as it keeps this portal open in the wide open position presented in this picture. If it smiles, might never sleep again. Coming in number 4, Warehouse Stranger. There are few places on planet Earth that match the otherworldly vibe of a discount furniture warehouse. Any wide open monument to capitalist overproduction tends to share that eerie feeling of being somewhere that you probably shouldn't be. Exciting and fun to explore, but definitely not somewhere you should spend more than a few hours per month. Really, any liquidation-based business gives off this aura. It might seem as though sticking around too long is bad due to psychic damage, or maybe the chance of getting locked in because the employees don't care to check every corner before leaving, but there's another potential danger: being followed by a stranger. And a stranger that looks like this, no less. I've got a whole lot of questions about this figure, lurking between the love seats and sectionals. Where did he come from? Why an empty discount furniture warehouse? And what's up with his head? And that head query leads me to making a connection between Warehouse Stranger and a few other mask-wearing creations. In part 2, we talked about Mr. Mask, who seems to have some pretty similar features, and there are a few other Henderson cryptids that also share their lanky stature and oversized domes. Are they related? Why do they inhabit these odd, otherworldly spaces? It's hard to even tell if they're dangerous or not, which might actually add to the disturbing quality. According to Trevor, a balance between goofiness and scariness is key to a good monster, and you know what? I see that. This lad is gonna follow you around the store, keeping a consistent distance at first, but getting closer over time. He thinks he works there, but nobody can be quite sure if he's trying to help you out, or if he knows you're not gonna buy anything and just wants you to leave. Just don't scuff any of the upholstery and you'll probably be fine. Coming in number 3, an office worker. To some, there is nothing scarier than the prospect of working a desk job for the rest of their lives, punching in at 9, clocking out at 5, filling out spreadsheets and eating bagged lunches for those hours in between. It's not for everyone, but it's a living. However, sometimes folks die on the job. Tragic for sure, but it is a thing that does happen. However, in the case of a particularly unlucky office worker, you might find yourself in the very same chair somebody else perished in. Oh boy. Hey, Jimmy, can you make sure to have those forms on my desk by 4? Oh, also that's where old Carl died. Just don't look up, okay? So yeah, in this picture, we're treated to what can only be described as a desiccated corpse peeking out from one of the ceiling tiles above someone's desk. The story seems to be that someone died while working their desk job and ended up haunting their workspace. Maybe they're just really into crunching numbers. Or maybe it could be that their job wronged them terribly and now they're gonna haunt the place until the business goes under. Either way, that can't be the most comfortable work environment, right? Coming in number 2, we've got the Fencer. There are all sorts of wicked slashers out there with all sorts of different weapons. You've got machetes, kitchen knives, other knives, claw gloves, axes, chainsaws, hacksaws, hooks, hook hands, spears, and more. But one weapon we don't see a lot of is a rapier. I suppose the generally stab-friendly sword isn't all that good for slashing, right? Well, there is Graduation Day, where someone ends up being decapitated by a fencing foil somehow, and then there's that music video with Jake Gyllenhaal, but still, A movie maniac in full fencing gear could be a blast and a half, as evidenced by this red and blue soaked render done up by Trevor Henderson. Just a whole lot of great details here, from the mood-heavy lighting to the perfectly plucked eyeball at the tip of the sword. I always found fencing gear to be a little odd looking, and this just confirms it. A lunatic chasing down co-eds in lame armor would be slasher gold. Hell, we've already got some concept art here. Back to the red and blue light, this would definitely fit in well with Giallo classics. I'm actually surprised that there isn't an Argento flick featuring a fencer, it just makes sense. The perfect mix of horrifying and kinda silly, with a bunch of great opportunities to spill extremely red blood. I know it's not real, but I feel like I've already watched this movie while I had a fever or something. Like, the ideas and energy are there in my memory, but I can't remember a single plot point. Maybe someday. And finally at number 1, Return of the Man with the Upside Down Face. He's back. And he's ready to bear witness to more terrible tragedies. You might be familiar with this particular cryptid, as he makes pretty regular appearances in Trevor's work. There's one hell of a backstory too. This figure makes appearances in the background of many awful events. It's said that he feeds off the negative energies of people, and in order to keep that food coming, he causes plenty of pain and death. If you look at a picture taken just before a catastrophe, there's a good chance you'll see the man with the upside down face somewhere amongst the subjects. He's never seen at the time, but will inevitably show up in the photo. For a long time, he only seemed to appear in black and white ones, possibly giving people hope that he was a relic of the past. Unfortunately, as this latest appearance shows, he's still alive and kicking, even in full color. The picture in question was apparently taken a month before the two subjects disappeared without a trace, too. So it begs the question, how many images preceding unfortunate events contained his flipped visage? So keep an eye out and do your best to double check your photos. If you see him in one of yours, it's time to be extra careful. Coming in at number 5, Night Shift. Keep your eyes wide open, folks, or is it the wide-eyed open eyes that are staying open? I'm not entirely sure, but what I do know is that this creature is totally terrifying. Just look at it floating there, keeping a watchful eye over this gas station late at night. There's a special quality to convenience stores after midnight, that's for sure, but something tells me it's probably better to wait till morning if this thing's around. Based on a very strange sticker seen in front of a bunch of pre-made sandwiches, Night Shift seems to hover over everything, ensuring nobody removes merchandise without paying for it. You know, because anything else would be considered theft. The more you know. What I'm worried about, though, isn't being accused of theft or even being caught red-handed. I'm worried about what this organ-dripping square will do if it finds out about any of that. Goodness gracious, this thing is horrid. Pictured floating between the aisles seemingly after hours, there's an eerie quality to this supernatural security guard. The longer you look at it, the more grotesque details stick out. There's the glassy, all-seeing eyes that remind me equally of doll's eyes and something from a surreal bit on late-night Adult Swim. There's the fact that nothing natural should ever have lines that straight, which is cause enough to be alarmed. And of course, what's up with the viscera dripping out of the lower end? I'm not so sure I want to find out what causes that or what it's made of. And what happens if it gets closer to the ground? Does it drag along, leaving a wet trail of slime and blood? I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. According to Trevor, this thing actually likes to shoplift itself, so maybe it won't come after you if you decide to be a little criminal. However, I think running into it at a closed shop is probably a bad omen. All in all, I'd say avoid the late night cig shopping and definitely don't go back to work after hours for any reason. The overtime isn't worth potentially coming face to face with these eyes without a face. Yowza. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Phantom. The Phantom of the Opera has recently undergone a PR overhaul. What was once a hideous, deformed man hiding in the walls of a famous theater became, well, Gerard Butler, but with a bit of burning behind the mask. Very sexy, lots of appeal, but missing most of the terror that should probably accompany such a character. Thankfully, there are plenty of folks online willing to dream up a more monstrous version of the iconic Phantom. Take Trevor's render of the operatic fellow. Now this is a movie I would watch. In his own words, he just wanted the Phantom to be way more of a gross creep. Isn't that something that would make most movies better? Just the addition of more gross creeps? Maybe that's just my preference. Moving on, we've got two versions of Mr. Phantom here, one with the mask on and another with the facial covering removed, and these days and times, what could be more upsetting, right? Without the mask is obviously very creepy, with gray, rotten flesh and a dead white eye. The grimace and greasy locks of hair really pull it all together. This is someone that would really cause a ruckus by revealing their true visage, but the masked version is also quite creepy. There seems to be a bit of a theme of masks in Trevor's work lately, and that works really well. The uncanny valley quality of a rough, homemade mask is enough to send many shivers down many spines. The dead, unblinking eye, the crack down the side, the extra red lips framing the constantly open mouth. There's a lot to take in here. So next time you hear that iconic organ playing, see which version of the Phantom pops into your head. Coming at number 3, we've got the patron saint of getting lost in sprawling department stores and malls. A little wordy, I know, but it's just so fun to say. I suppose that you could also refer to this creature as the Stranger, but that's just not quite as fun. We talked about a similar creature last time, and it's very possible that this is actually the very same entity. However, it is a new rendition that frames our furniture warehouse wandering pal as a patron saint, which seems to make it even more upsetting. It'll watch over all who wander in the seemingly endless halls of abandoned retail establishments. Department stores were having a rough time before the pandemic, and I'm sure if I was to visit a closed one now, it would be even more shiver-inducing. There's a lot going on with this creature, with its quasi-papier-mâché head, painted-on eyes, and extremely human hands. Was it once human, or is it just taking on the form of those it seems to follow? We may never know. If you look beneath the post in which Trevor introduces this fellow, you'll find a new possibility that you might not like. Under that big round head, there could be a set of awful teeth surrounded by raw, red flesh. Is there a whole new visage underneath? And is it worth it to try and find out? Coming in at number 2, Friend. What do you think? Is this Nugget, this adorable little scamp that fell off the back of Big Charlie and grew into a fun friend? Or is this one a little too red, a little too off-center? It's hard to say for sure, but I think I like him. After all, he is a friend, a small creature, something to be cherished and shared with others. While the creature itself may have been seen before, this is a brand new drawing of it, complete with a little scratchy caption letting everyone know exactly what it is. So keep an eye out for anything like this in your vicinity, because you could forge a valuable bond. And finally at number 1, Bridgeworm returns. To cap off our list, let's take another look at a new rendition of a classic Henderson monster, the Bridgeworm. This underpass dweller loves to lure people in with a false face before revealing its true form. The visage it presents to the world kinda reminds me of Strong Sad, and would probably convince me to come and help it out. Why so sad, little buddy? But once you buy into that tragic narrative, it's lights out. Look what happens. Before? After. Oh god. The first wet face is a little unsettling, but nothing too bad. But once it pulls back and shows you its true form, that's nightmares for weeks. Months, probably. There's just something about the raw, bloody nature of its face flesh that really gets the skin crawling, and those teeth. Jeez Louise. Don't get me started on its bulbous eyes. There's something about it that makes me think it's like constantly in the most amount of pain imaginable, and that it's also been given some really shocking news. But neither of these are true, because all it wants is to eat you under a bridge.